Now, it's one of those terms that's bandied around all the time now, but do you understand exactly what blogging is? Now, my understanding is it's a bit like an online diary, but how does it actually work, and well, what's the point of it? Well, it's now being used more and more in business, and one Oxfordshire company has attracted over 5,000 people interested in reading about online marketing. Well, to tell me more, I'm joined by Kevin Gibbons from SEOptimise, based on the Oxford Science Park. Kevin, thanks ever so much for coming in today. Now, first of all, we'll talk about blogging in a minute, but what's SEOptimise?
Good morning, Louisa.
Morning.
SEOptimise are a search marketing and social media marketing agency, and we basically try and optimise websites and promote websites.
So this is
traffic.
Things then like, you know, when you put something in Google or any other search engine, you will kind of analyse how far up the listings that particular web search goes. Is that right?
That's right, yes. And we're trying to optimise a website based around keywords so that they're relevant to a business and can obviously send website visits and obviously look at increasing sales and leads.
There must have been a huge demand for work like this in the last few years, I suppose, because the competition is so rife. And when you do put something in a search engine, you can get tens of thousands of results coming back up. So I suppose to be on that front page of search results must be a really good thing.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very valuable to a business if they could receive targeted traffic straight into their website.
So how do you do it then? You mentioned about sort of keywords and things, and I've heard this term, and I'm not blinding you with science, but because I don't understand this, but I've heard something called metadata. And is that something to do with those keywords that you search?
It's basically an old-fashioned way of how websites used to be optimised. It still, to a certain extent, does have some relevance, but basically the search engines will look at how relevant your web page is based around a set of keywords.
Right.
And there'd be certain attributes on the page, such as a title tag and the keywords which are used on the page. And then Google would choose, based on the websites which it is listing, which is the most relevant and which it ranks highest in the search rankings.
So how do you do that then? Because if you've got keywords, I don't know, if you run an accountancy business, for example, then one of your keywords will be accountancy. So how would a search engine choose one over the other?
One of the main things which Google looks at is the actual inbound links, which means other websites which are linking into the actual website.
Right.
So if, say, you get a mention on the BBC,
yeah,
and there's a hyperlink which points to your own website, that strengthens your chances of increasing your search rankings. Which is actually where blogging fits in quite well, because by creating your own content, you can naturally attract links.
So let's talk about blogging then, because you explain that well, but I'm a little bit lost.
Okay.
But blogging, describe what it is, because I thought it was just like an online diary.
In a way, it is an online journal, which, say, if you have a personal blog, you would write about different things you were doing, and it's obviously ordered by date, so you could keep in touch with what a person's doing while they're travelling, for example. But businesses are using this more commonly as well, and it's a very effective way of publishing their news, their information and opinions online so that people can subscribe and read about a company.
And so how does that then increase the traffic that you might get to your website and help your marketing?
It basically means that people will subscribe and read, but the most effective thing we've done ourselves for our own blog is actually promoting content which we find interesting. And rather than being too self-promotional, we're writing things which we think will be useful for other people within search marketing. So the type of things we've been doing is writing, say, top 10 lists of, I don't know, say the best blogs within our industry.
Yeah.
And then this is getting picked up by other people who find it useful, and they're linking to us.
Right.
And promoting our website using, say, social media websites.
So it's quite a clever way of doing it in a sense then, isn't it?
Yeah, I've actually got some stats, and I think there's 55% more traffic to company websites when they have a blog. as opposed to
Really?
when they don't.
But what kind of people would subscribe to a blog then? Because presumably, unless they're dealing with that company day to day, they're not going to be that interested in their thoughts and the way they're developing, are they?
It depends what you're writing about, but if you could have an angle on blog posts which are interesting, for example, people interested in search engine marketing may just read this perhaps to learn, perhaps because they find it interesting to read during their lunch, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So what got you into this then?
It was basically when I was trying to learn about search engine marketing.
Yeah.
I started to write a blog myself about trying to learn as I went along, and I was writing about the type of things I was learning, and very quickly realised that it wasn't just me reading this. I thought it was just there for my own kind of research and testing purposes, and a lot of people had the same sort of problems, and they were writing about the same sort of things themselves. And I quickly saw that
there was
a
an
very
opportunity.
effective way, yeah.
So I suppose a lot of the work you do then, when companies do come to see you about sort of marketing, you encourage them to write a blog as well.
Yeah, almost certainly. I think it's a great way of actually, say, spreading your message quickly online. So obviously there's 1.5 billion people who use the web. So if you could reach a worldwide audience very quickly, then it's a very effective way of doing things.
Do you think a lot of companies, certainly in this sort of day and age, we're kind of behind the times a little bit and not picking up on things like, how to make sure you're higher up in a search engine, even having a website that is user-friendly to start with?
I think we're getting up to speed, but there's definitely room for improvement. Some businesses perhaps aren't ready for blogging just yet, but possibly because they don't realise the advantages in actually doing so.
Yeah. And what kind of companies use your sort of services then? Is it a really wide range of people?
It is a wide range. We work with a lot of local clients. Travel would be one. Another example would be a business psychology client called Pern Candola, and they're based in Oxfordshire. And they've used blogging very effectively in terms of promoting themselves, because rather than just writing about business psychology, they've actually tried to reach a wider audience. So they've wrote a blog with a psychology analysis of the apprentice candidates instead.
Right.
So they're obviously, instead of reaching out to people who are interested in business psychology, they're looking at people who are interested in the BBC TV show instead, which is a much wider audience, and it's been very popular. They've predicted each week, back when the TV show was on, they predicted who they think would be fired next.
Oh, brilliant.
And obviously who they thought was going to be...
Were they right most of the
hired.
time?
Yeah, actually within the second week they picked the final three. So
Good grief.
So it proved that the business psychology side of things was working very well.
Does this work as well for sort of small businesses? Because you talked about these are all quite large companies, but even a small business, would they benefit from something like this?
I think small businesses especially, this works very well for, because you can punch above your weight in a way, because from our point of view, starting a company, we obviously don't have a large budget like our large competitors do. But in blogging, we can write a message which our subscribers are probably higher than most of our competitors, and we can instantly send traffic. And so far this year, we've actually received 192,000 visits to our blog.
Crikey. So, and is it just finally technically quite easy to do? Because, I mean, a lot of people, and I remember this when I had my own company, you sort of design the website, somebody puts it all up, and then you never touch it again. But I suppose for doing something like a blog, you're going to have to keep accessing it yourself, making sure it's updated and all those sorts of things. Is that easy to do for somebody who maybe isn't into web design?
It can be very time consuming in terms of the effort you put into blogging, but I think you could justify a certain amount of time to dedicate towards it. And in terms of getting started, there's websites you can use for free, such as WordPress and blogger.com, and you can just sign up and get started straight away.
So it's worth trying, I suppose.
It's all quite simple, yeah. It could get more complicated if you wanted to start doing things with your own website, but to get started, it's all fairly simple.
Well, Kevin, do you know what? If I had an interesting life and anything remotely interesting to say, I might start a blog.
Okay.
But as soon